Your species ranks dead last in the galaxy.
Good. Then you'll never see us coming.
The Galactic Biological Index ranked humanity last. Not second to last. Not near the bottom. Last. Out of 212 cataloged sapient species, humans placed 212th in physical capability, 209th in sensory range, 201st in individual lifespan, and dead last in what the index called environmental resilience, the ability to survive outside their native conditions without technological assistance. No claws, no venom, no natural armor. A skeleton that broke under moderate impact. A cardiovascular system that failed under sustained stress. A lifespan so short that most species considered human generations to be roughly equivalent to mayflies. Brief, numerous, and structurally insignificant. The Dreth had read the index carefully before declaring war. They were methodical that way. Supreme Warlord Gan stood in his war chamber and walked his generals through the assessment, the same way an experienced surgeon explains a routine procedure. Humanity controlled 11 systems. The Dreth wanted 7 of them. Resource-rich, strategically positioned, currently underleveraged by a species too physically fragile to properly exploit what they had. The war projection modeled a 6-month campaign. Conservative, accounting for the irrational human tendency to keep fighting past the rational threshold. The projection had an 89% confidence interval. Gan had never gone to war below 90%. He made an exception because the index was the index, and 212th was 212th, and some numbers just didn't require more deliberation. Commander Dara Osei received the Dreth Declaration of War on a Wednesday morning, on a station in the Kepler Belt, over a breakfast she hadn't finished. She read the full declaration, set it aside, and finished her coffee first because some habits outlast crisis. Then she got to work. The first 3 engagements went exactly as the Dreth projection modeled. Human fleet losses were significant. The Dreth moved through the outer system defenses with the efficiency of a species that had been fighting interstellar wars for 600 years against opponents with actual physical capability and hadn't lost one in 200. They were precise. They were fast. They did not waste ordnance or personnel or time. Gan reviewed the Week 3 battle summary with the placid satisfaction of a man watching a plan execute correctly. What the summary showed: 14 human ships destroyed, 3 stations captured, 1 colony world under blockade. Overall human defensive capability reduced by an estimated 31%. What the summary did not show, because his intelligence team had not thought to model for it, what the humans were doing while losing. Osei's command center was a converted cargo hauler, moving every 18 hours, never in the same sector twice. It was cramped and loud and smelled like overworked equipment, and at any given moment, it contained 17 people who had been awake too long doing things that the Dreth projection had not allocated processing power to. "Talk to me about the logistics chain," Osei said, standing over a tactical display at 200 hours with a stylus and a notepad, actual paper, because their digital comms were being actively monitored. Lieutenant Ferris pulled up the route map. The Dreth resupply chain runs through the Helios corridor. Single access point from their staging area. They've got 2 patrol elements covering it, but they're on a predictable rotation. 4-hour cycles, same vector every time. Because they've never fought anyone who'd exploit a predictable rotation, Osei said. Apparently not. She looked at the map for a long moment. How many people do we need for an interdiction run? Ferris looked at her. Against a guarded Dreth supply corridor? Yes. On paper? 3 times what we have. Osei wrote something on her notepad. Good thing we're not doing it on paper. The Dreth resupply chain failed on day 41. Not catastrophically. Not with an explosion or a fleet engagement. It failed the way complex systems fail when someone patient and precise has been quietly pulling at the right threads. Gradually, then suddenly, and by the time Gan's logistics officer flagged the anomaly, the damage was already structural. Osei had not hit the supply chain directly. She'd hit the 3 automated relay stations that coordinated the convoy timing. Small strikes. Fast. For people each. The kind of operation the Dreth projection hadn't budgeted for, because the index said humans were physically fragile and the projection assumed fragile meant cautious. It doesn't mean cautious. It means humans had spent 10,000 years of evolution learning to compensate, learning to hit where it hurt, because hitting directly was never an option. Humans were the species that had, on their own planet, hunted animals 10 times their size by simply following them until the animal gave up. A hunting strategy so alien to every other predator on Earth that biologists had a specific term for it. Persistence hunting. The prey wasn't killed by strength. It was killed by the simple, relentless refusal to stop. The Dreth logistics chain buckled on day 41. By day 50, the blockade on the colony world had thinned. Ships pulled back to cover resupply gaps. By day 60, Gan's generals were presenting revised projections. The original 6-month campaign had been extended to 14, then 20. The models kept requiring revision because they had been built on a static picture of human capability, and humans were not static. Every engagement taught them something. Every loss was analyzed, stripped for data, and fed back into the next decision. The Dreth were fighting the enemy they'd assessed at the start of the war. Osei was fighting the enemy she'd learned about over 60 days of getting hit. Those are not the same war. On day 63, she hit the Dreth staging area. Not with a fleet. She didn't have a fleet. She hit it with 7 ships running a sensor ghost pattern that her electronic warfare team had reverse-engineered from captured Dreth targeting data. The pattern made 7 ships look like 34. The staging area's automated defense grid responded to 34 ships. The response pulled 3 patrol elements from the Helios corridor. The corridor opened for 11 minutes. 11 minutes was enough. The 2 Dreth fuel processing platforms that kept the entire campaign operational were destroyed by a strike team that had been hiding in the asteroid field adjacent to the corridor for 9 days, running on minimum power, eating cold rations, waiting. Gan looked at his tactical display and saw the campaign he'd planned coming apart at the joints, and he understood, not gradually, but all at once, like a structure that holds until it doesn't, that he had modeled the wrong enemy. He had modeled the species the index described. He had not modeled what that species does when someone gives them a reason. The Dreth sued for terms on day 91, not because they were destroyed. They weren't. The Dreth were still the larger force, still the more physically capable species, still ranked in the top 30 of the Galactic Biological Index by every measurable category. They sued for terms because Gan's revised projection, run by 3 separate modeling teams to make sure it wasn't a computational error, showed a war that would last 4 more years. 4 more years against an enemy that was getting better every month while the Dreth were getting more expensive. The math had flipped. Osei received a request for negotiations sitting in the same converted cargo hauler she'd started the war in, now docked at the rebuilt Kepler Belt station. She was finishing breakfast, actually finishing it this time. The coffee was still hot. The terms humanity sent back were not punitive. They didn't need to be. The 7 systems the Dreth had come for would remain human. A buffer zone would be established. No reparations demanded. No humiliation built into the language. Just a clean line and a clear understanding of what crossing it would cost. Gan signed without revision. Osei filed the treaty, sent copies to the 11 human systems, and sat for a moment in the quiet of the command center with her hand around her coffee cup. Ferris came to stand in the doorway. 212th, he said, referencing the index. Weakest species in the galaxy. Osei looked out the viewport at the stars, at 11 systems that were still theirs, at the particular dark between them that the Dreth had decided was too expensive to cross. Yeah, she said. She drank her coffee. Funny how that works. Because the index measured what we were at rest, and the galaxy made the mistake of waking us up.